they're still Alabama. I mean, yeah, they fell to 7 in the AP poll, but I mean, at the end of the day, 7 still gets you into a playoff berth.
What does it matter?
And I think they would be completely fine sitting at home watching the SEC championship, already preparing for the Big 12 conference champion or whoever it is at that point.
That's a good point. That's a good point because, I mean, not making the SEC championship isn't a death sentence anymore. It's, I get another week of rest.
Yeah. I mean,
in my back pocket. So
they get a bye week just a week early.
Yeah, and you have to play an extra game, but you also get the benefit of playing a lower seeded team, more towards the 12th seed, and a team that you could probably handle, a team that is not on the same level most likely as teams you've seen during the season. So they don't necessarily control their own destiny, but if they win out, there's a pretty good chance they'll make it to the SEC championship. I think they'll bounce back. They're a very talented team. DeBoer is a good coach, but what we saw on the defensive side of the ball was very uncharacteristic of an Alabama team, even down to the discipline. I mean, if you were on social media, you saw the absolute temper tantrum that Malachi Moore threw there towards the end of the game. He was yelling, throwing towels, even, the ref was spotting the ball and he kicked it. I mean, he had an all-time meltdown. I saw also another angle, and I didn't know this until earlier today, where DeBoer and their defensive coordinator, I think his name is Womack. I don't know how to pronounce his name. They sent somebody out on the field to sub him. And he told him, no, get off the field. And they tried to walk on the field and get him off the field, and he refused to come off the field.
Or if you were on my team, you wouldn't play for 2 weeks. Like I would let him drive.
And that's what I'm saying is I want to see how DeBoer goes about this, because I'm not saying that a suspension is the right course of action. However, that's a dangerous precedent.
It is.
To let guys see that behavior and know when the going gets tough, you're allowed to just kind of I'm not saying he gave up, but act like that.
Yeah.
I mean
it's too late to
obviously something will done. Yeah. Something will be done internally. Who knows if they'll even say what it is? I doubt he misses time. I'm just saying that is a dangerous precedent to set if you're a head coach.
Yeah.
And if that was Nick Saban, I would have loved to have seen the new asshole that he ripped that guy.
Oh,
he probably would have went on the field and grabbed him by the shirt collar and dragged him off the field himself, or called a timeout at that point. I don't know if they didn't have any timeouts, but
I don't think they had. He would have taken the 15-yard penalty to go drag his ass off the field.
Yeah, he would have intentionally jumped off sides and ran his ass out there and took him off the field. But kind of insane from an Alabama team who was always very disciplined under Nick Saban. That was kind of his thing, was, even down to the shirts being tucked in.
I think on the Vanderbilt side of things, it's kind of changed my perception of Vanderbilt, because, them losing to Georgia State, I was like, oh, well, the old Vanderbilt team, their season be over. There's nothing really to play for. It's over, it's done, it's gone. The close loss to Missouri, we're getting out of here. It's all good. Good season, boys. Let's just see if we can fight for bowl eligibility. Mm-hmm. And now, I'm looking at this Kentucky game. When we started this recording, they're 13.5-point dogs. I already took them. I don't know when this part of the video is coming out, but if you can get them as double-digit dogs, I would take it. At the Krog.
This will be out earlier. Yeah, this will be in our recap vid, so it'll be up earlier in the week. So if you're seeing this, check the line. If it's anywhere near it, might want to consider it. We don't always know what we're talking about, but hey, Vanderbilt has a hell of a lot of momentum. Yeah. Kentucky kind of had they've been weird. They've been good when they needed to be, but then kind of this, I don't know. So
not good enough to beat a Diego Pavia team by 2 touchdowns. But yeah, and then they host Ball State, and then they have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and host Texas. So
they're hosting them. I think there's some magic about that new stadium. I swear, because if they wouldn't, I'm sorry. If that game was in Bryant-Denny this past weekend, Alabama would have won by a couple scores.
Yeah,
that's a fact of the matter. They would have the crowd on their side. They would have had more explosive plays. There would have been miscommunications on the defense. Yep. It would have been a hell of a different game, but I'm glad it was at First Bank Stadium in Nashville.
Yeah. I'm saying if they beat Texas at home, don't finish building the stadium.
No.
Leave it exactly as it is.
arguably stop now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't even keep going. That needs to be preserved.
It's
active. Yeah. And leave it with only one goalpost. You know, every touchdown they score on that end zone, you got to go to the other side, kick the PAT, or just go for 2 every time. Who cares?
Yeah. Drew, I really like what you
home field
said
advantage
about changing the perspective. Like your perspective has kind of shifted on Vanderbilt. I feel the same way. I think we are seeing, I don't want to say ascension, but like we are seeing them transform from bottom feeder to, I hope they keep climbing and they're firmly in that middle of the pack some years more, you know, of the SEC.
Bowl eligible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that'd be a huge step for their program from
'Cause-
where they've been. I mean, they've been a baseball school and an academic anchor for the conference.
At this point, like lost to Georgia State, that's bad, right? Beating Bama, that will hopefully get some asses in seats and hopefully turn some of those kind of fringe games that like they're a tough football team. You know, they got Texas coming in a few weeks. Get those asses in the seats. Get the atmosphere pumping.
Yeah, I mean,
you got a chance in more games than you normally would. So
I mean, they've got Auburn. To be fair, that's on the road, but they've got Auburn, and who knows what's going to happen? You're either going to get the Peyton Thorne that has a decent day, or you're going to get the Peyton Thorne that throws 3 interceptions. And then you host South Carolina. Again, you don't know which South Carolina you're going to get. And then they do head to Death Valley, which they might just get outclassed there in that stadium. But they host it.
That's tough.
Yeah, they host Tennessee.
Ooh.
I'm just saying, if Tennessee drops another game between now and Vanderbilt,
I like that.
They could knock them out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they could knock them out of the playoffs.
You know how much, if I were Vanderbilt, how much satisfaction that would give me? Oh my, unbelievable it would be.
Yeah, they could be the this year's version of, what was it, 2021 South Carolina?
Yep.
Who took out Tennessee and Clemson.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Michigan gave them the signs, right? Wasn't that the conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
Connor Stallions intervened.
Connor Stallions just showed up in Columbia on a Thursday afternoon. Just dropped.
Said, "Hey man."
Yep.
Drop a hard drive. There you go.
Oh shit, that's funny.
That is funny. All right, I think that's a wrap for Alabama, Vandy. We have a few more games to touch on here. Let me pull up my handy dandy list. We can continue it. We were just talking about Tennessee. We can roll it into Tennessee, Arkansas. Tennessee, I will say, you know, I've been kind of a box score watcher for them. Not gonna lie, through this point of the season, you know, they're putting up 70 against Kent State. It's impressive, but looking at least the box score, don't come for me. Nico was a lot less, or do if you want, whatever floats your boat. Nico has been a lot less involved through the air than I imagined he would be. Noah touched on it earlier. He's a young guy. It's the hypo offense is not the most simple thing. It is go, 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 go. I don't know exactly the specifics of it. They probably have like a handful of plays called at any point in time. You can change depending on the look. I'm sure it's a lot to deal with. I mean, because you're not taking a breath. You are trying to catch them in a spot where you have a mismatch or somebody is out of place in alignment on the defense. It is such a speed game. And they have been, you know, dominating the ground game. They have a pair of good running backs. But Arkansas came to play, and this was a low-scoring defensive battle. And Arkansas came out the other end. Tennessee had a chance there at the end. Nico obviously did what he did, whether he thought there was going to be time when he stepped out of bounds at the end of the game there, or what was going through his head. I'm assuming he had to have thought that maybe he gets out of bounds with 1 second, to take another shot at the end zone. You just got to have more awareness, at least put it in the end zone, give your guys a chance. Not saying it's his fault, because quite frankly, that touchdown that Arkansas scored at the end, if you watch the footage, they let them score that. There was a guy on the goal line. I don't know who it was for the Tennessee. It was a Tennessee defensive back, and he kind of played Olay, like he looked like he was trying to go tackle him and just backed up in the last second. Yeah. Not the dumbest move if you think that much that they're going to score on you, then go ahead and let them score and give yourself a chance. But
he was obviously coached to do that. Like, there's no way a player just makes that decision. He was coached to do
I'm sure that was communicated, and it gave him a chance to win at the end. Obviously not a spot you want to be in to give up points to give yourself a chance, especially as especially a team like Tennessee, who has been touted as dominant by a lot of people this offseason, as not even a dark horse anymore in the SEC. There was a lot of people talking big game about Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're a bad team, but they obviously have a lot more holes than people were ready to admit on certain sides of the internet, I think.
Yeah. Our comment section too, huh?
That might have been what I was alluding to. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but guys, they're not perfect. I mean, I know there's a little bit of bias that plays into it. You want this to be the year every year. Yeah. But, you know, too many mistakes from Tennessee. And if you have an offense like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, just want to put it out there. We appreciate the comments. We did not mean any disrespect. We love a discourse.
But please don't send death threats.
Somebody sent me my social security number in the mail along with my home address.
Got my
no, I'm kidding.
Me in the DMs.
Yeah. But I mean, when you trust your offense more than you do your defense historically, especially with Heupel as the head coach and the play caller, I mean, Ole probably isn't the best or probably isn't the worst play call there. No. Just with the time and the situation being what it was. Statistically, I mean, just looking at it, Arkansas was probably going to score anyway and take their time doing so. Excuse me. So, I mean, I don't hate the Ole call. But, yeah, I think if Nico has another year under his belt, I think he probably handles that at the end a little bit better. At least has the wherewithal to at least give it a heave. I mean, who knows what happens once that ball gets in the air.
I mean, it wasn't even a heave at that point. We're talking the 20. You're talking the 20-yard line. That's the thing. I think he had to have just not known. Yeah, I mean,
that's what I thought he was going to do.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think it was just a mental lapse from a young player, and it's very obvious because the only thing that makes sense to me in that scenario is that he didn't know. He thought he had time to step out of bounds and have another shot. But, I mean, you got to know that. You got to have your internal clock in your head. Even if you can't see the time, you have to have something that's telling you, this is it. I need to take a shot. Not even a heave. I don't remember exactly what yard line it was on. It was a 20-yard throw at most. Very achievable. Just put it in the end zone, right? So, obviously, a young kid making a crucial error, but obviously that did not single-handedly lose them the game. I mean, they lost the game. Started up front. Arkansas just played a better football.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I think from here for Tennessee, you were kind of looking at it before this game as, okay, you go to Athens, right? And then you host Alabama, not necessarily in that order. Flip the order there. Earlier in the year before this past week, you're thinking, okay, split. I'm cool with that. Get to the SEC championship game if you're a fan or a player. Now, I think you got to get both, honestly, because you got. Arguably Texas is the top dog in the conference, and then
as of right now, yes,
Texas A&M technically, but yes,
yeah.
By a technicality,
this new SEC is a bloodbath every year. Like I think Tennessee's going to need both to be in SEC championship conversation, just because I think
100%.
Georgia.
Absolutely.
I think Georgia. Sorry, homer take here. I think we beat Texas here in a few weeks, but
I hope so.
I hope so too, bro.
Let's hope. We'll get to that. There's going to be a lot of conversation around that. Yeah, I think they totally. You need both for the SEC championship, but hear me out. Hear me out. This might be a hot take. If you split them and keep it close with Georgia and Alabama, and you're 10-2 as Tennessee, I don't hate it.
Are they out?
You're probably making.
At 9-3, they're out.
You're out at 9-3. If you split Alabama, Georgia, make it respectable, you give yourself a hell of a chance to make it in, even without the SEC championship. You get an extra week of rest, and you probably get a home playoff game. So in this new system, that's not the worst thing, but you can't drop both. If you drop both, you're out. In my mind, you have to split. There's no way. Yeah. There's too much talent in the SEC to make it in at 9-3. You're going to have other teams that are 10-2 or 11-1.
Yeah. Well, I think. Hypotheticals are running through my brain right now, but
those are fun because they get disproved real quick.
Yeah, no shit. But I mean, if Tennessee beats Alabama and then loses to Georgia in close fashion, like you are insinuating, then you would. And if let's just say Alabama wins the rest of their games, you'd have a 10-2 Alabama and a 10-2 Tennessee chilling at the crib watching the SEC championship game. Both probably knowing that they have a playoff bid coming up in a week.
Yeah, that's a good point, because then you could be punished for losing the SEC championship if you're Alabama. You played an extra game, you have an extra loss.
Yeah, well, I guess
down to that.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I don't really know if this is mathematically possible, but I think there's a hypothetical world where Georgia could win out. No. Never mind. I'm just gonna shut the fuck up now.
Scratch that.
Yeah.
I will
say
this
conversation was never had.
The spirit of it is that there is so much madness that could happen with the SEC right now, and in all likelihood, things will play out and resolve themselves. But there are scenarios where there's going to be a lot of teams with similar records with tiebreakers over each other. And that's probably going to be an ongoing conversation this entire season. But does anybody have anything else to add on Tennessee Arky?
Can I just make a closing statement about the SEC? Is this our last SEC game we're discussing?
I have Missouri A&M on the docket, but you can go ahead and make it if you want.
Yeah, I can go ahead and segue because this is about A&M.
Yeah, unless Noah has something.
Sorry, Noah.
I was just gonna see if y'all think Arkansas can theoretically fire Sam Pittman still.
Not this year.
4-2.
Not after that. I mean, if they lose out, I think that Tennessee game keeps them. Honestly,
if they lose out, this is already a better season than last year.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think they'll lose out.
I agree. I just want to see what y'all thought.
Yep.
No, I hope they don't fire him. I love him, man. I mean, looking at their schedule real quick, they kind of have a gauntlet. They have LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri.
Jesus Christ!
They could theoretically maybe lose out. They can't lose out. They have Mississippi State and they have Louisiana Tech. Okay, so at bare minimum, they're winning 6 games. We'll wrap it there. I think I'd like Arkansas to keep Pittman at least through this year, maybe next year. People are way too fast. Yeah, people are way too fast to fire coaches in the SEC. They're hard to come by. A good coach is hard to come by. So I don't think they should be too brash in their decision making there.
The only selfish reason I would love for Sam Pittman to be fired is because he could hopefully come back and coach up this offensive line.
That's what I said.
That is the only good thing.
Yep.
I
want him back.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Can we segue?
Yep.
Yes, go for it, Drew. Take us home.
So with Texas A&M taking Missouri, the bitch-ass Missouri Tigers to the woodshed on Saturday. Whose lock was that? I have no idea. Some idiot.
Doesn't know ball.
Doesn't know ball. Probably wearing a yellow shirt right now. Beautiful hair, beard. But anyway, with Texas A&M, I guess upsetting, not really, because they were the favorite, but Missouri was a top 10 team at the time, and Texas A&M was ranked 25th. They are now 15th. But anyway, they are currently atop the SEC standings, sitting at 3-0 in conference play, with this schedule ahead of them. Mississippi State, they host LSU, they head to South Carolina, they head to Jordan-Hare, and then they host Texas. I'm just saying there is a hypothetical scenario where the Texas A&M game has conference championship implications, and there's also a scenario where that game is a preview of the conference championship game, depending on what the other teams do. If that doesn't show you how wide open and how crazy the SEC is right now, look at that, because Notre Dame took Texas A&M at home and won in a dogfight. So shout out to the Aggies for turning things around, taking care of business. But I just have nothing good to say about Missouri right now. The only thing that I can say is that they kind of got hosed by the refs. At least on the Luther Burden touchdown that was called back.
Yeah, that was tough.
That was tough. But I don't know. I feel like we could talk about the SEC race for like 30 more minutes, but I'm not going to do that.
I'm looking at Texas A&M's schedule to this point. If they play any team other than Notre Dame, and Notre Dame, they're their own category. We could probably talk 30 minutes about them if we really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
If they play, let's say, I don't know, fucking Stanford or some shit at home, week 1, beat them. They're undefeated right now, coming off a 31-point victory against the then number 9 team in the country at home. We are talking about A&M a whole lot differently.
100%.
Absolutely.
And I think
100%.
I think a lot of people were very quick to write off A&M after that week 1 game. Just be like, oh, yeah, me too. I did too.
Yeah.
I think
Same
everybody.
A&M, you know.
Yeah, their offense looks like trash, just all that.
So I think, tight win against Arkansas now 2 weeks ago.
Man.
Hey, rivalry game,
And
it's hard to win in the SEC.
Good.
Yeah. You saw Arkansas just did to Tennessee. I mean, They remind me a lot of like a Kentucky. People write them off. Exactly. There's talent across the entire conference. Everybody, I will say the only genuinely bad team that I can think of this year in the SEC is Mississippi State.
They got boat raced by Toledo.
Anybody else you think of, even teams the perennial powerhouses in the SEC, but even teams who are having down stretches like Auburn or Florida, Auburn took Oklahoma to the line. Florida put it to UCF, who's a pretty respectable football team. Mm-hmm. Conference top to bottom there's no. Kirby Smart has talked a lot about this too. There's no guarantees in the SEC.
No.
And it might make me sound like an SEC homer. I am, but I wholeheartedly believe it because football is hard, and you have to be on the same page, and you have to bring your A game. And when you're up there, teams like Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, you got targets on your back, and you're going to get everybody's best shot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I will say I like Mike Elko a lot at A&M. I think it is a breath of fresh air from Jimbo. He hasn't played good ball. They didn't get discouraged after Notre Dame, and like you said, Drew, they're technically first in the SEC as it stands right now. The schedule isn't that daunting. Their biggest game, the rest of the way, is LSU, and they get them at home, I believe. And then you have, or they in Death Valley.
No.
Oh wait.
I was going to say up until their biggest game is Texas.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm talking about before Texas.
I thought
before Texas, obviously.
Texas will have 4 losses by then. Don't worry.
It's like, Brandon, you are no longer allowed to drive any videos from now on.
Look,
but no, they host LSU.
Yeah, no. Texas goes Georgia, Vandy. That could be a 2-loss stretch. Who knows?
Hypothetically, yes.
Powerhouse.
Diego Pavia and company.
Theoretically, they are next on the schedule.
They are. That's hilarious.
But up until Texas, asterisk. That's their biggest game. So, like y'all said, that game could have conference championship implications because if A&M wins out, they're undefeated in the SEC. They have to be in the SEC championship. Nobody else in the SEC can say they're undefeated unless they get beat by Texas, who goes undefeated up until that point.
Correct.
But
correct.
It's crazy to talk about that because I hadn't even thought about A&M like that. But it's looking good for them. So you gotta. I don't know. And they look really good against Missouri. Obviously, Kyle Field is a hard place to play. But they used it to their advantage, and they don't have that many big road games. Is Texas A&M Texas a neutral site, or is that at somebody's house? Where's that?
It's in College Station.
Massive.
That's
massive.
That is huge.
So the rest of their big games throughout the way are in their own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
They completely control their destiny. I haven't heard many people talking about A&M like that. And I think people need to start thinking about it because if you get past LSU, there needs to be some serious conversations being had about them being, right there for the SEC championship.
Yeah, their toughest road games is a coin toss between South Carolina and Auburn.
Yeah, and look, they could very well lose one of those games. Don't get me wrong. This is a team that came out and kind of laid an egg against Notre Dame. I'm thinking hopefully for their sake they've turned the page, and it looks like they have. But as we can see, this could be all this could be make no sense, could be nonsense by this next weekend. So who knows? Sure. But right now they look good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good deal.
All right. Do we want to talk about the Woke versus Coke game to wrap up previews? How do we feel about that?
Yeah.
We can touch on it a little bit. I'll be the first one to say we live on the East Coast. All three of us do. I caught some of that game,
Yes.
but the prevailing theme was that Cal had a lead, blew a lead. That was that.
I think you said previews. Did you mean to say recap?
Yes, sir.
We are
Would
time
admit what I
travelers.
stood.
We are time travelers on this channel. I wish I could time travel, so it means I could stay up for this game. Because I'm not gonna lie, I believe it was 31-10 at one point. I turned it off. I had to make a business decision. I had church the next morning. Even the late service, I was yawning because of this game. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the gist that I caught, and based off the clips that I have seen from the second half, kind of similar to the Virginia Tech game. Kind of the refs played an integral role in Miami winning this game. With a potential targeting call that may or may not have been targeting. Apparently, we don't know what targeting is. It's kind of how, like, in the NFL, we didn't know what a catch was for like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Now we don't really know what a targeting is, but like, I don't know. It's just funny how the ACC crew. I'm just saying, calls for the past 2 weeks have seemed to go for the conference frontrunner instead of against. I'm just noticing a trend. Not saying anything, just noticing.
Just observing, not saying anything is correlated. However, not that we're putting on tinfoil hats or anything, but Miami is the main product of the ACC right now. Far and away, you have a Heisman contender in Cam Ward. Clemson is good, but not as good as they've been in the past. They don't have a guy with the it factor, the guy that you can hang your hat on and say, that's the guy that is, a Heisman candidate, is a leader of the team. And I think overall, the ACC would like to push more of the product on the field for Miami, which is more of an explosive defense, or not defense, explosive offense, defense, sometimes optional.
Yep. Also, by the way, the last thing I'll say about this game is the equipment truck is still driving.
Is there a tracker?
Dude.
There's not a tracker, but just, math. Unless they left immediately, even if they left immediately after the game, I still think they would have just now gotten into Florida.
Yeah, Drew, you should. If we can find more, I'll go look for that. You should make a follow-up because that video was sick. That video was sick. If anybody's here from this video, let us know. I'm curious to see if anything bled over. Maybe not, but video did well, and for good reason. I mean, that's insane for conference play.
I'm pretty sure they play Stanford next year, so they're going to beat their own PI. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Woke versus Coke. I think that's the one we have the least to talk about. Unless Noah, you want to add something to round us out.
If not, talk about the targeting. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, hard to notice big calls like that not favoring Miami.
Yeah.
Not even saying and the.
Also, sorry.
They did. No, the Calgorithm showed up. One of the more enjoyable game days in a while. A lot of energy. Their first game day ever, right?
And Reese Davis sounded like he was literally dying on the call.
So, didn't he work like a 22-hour shift?
Yes.
I saw.
From what I saw, they had somebody lined up to call a game at the 10:30 slot. Dropped out for personal reasons. Reese, already being in the area for college game day, gets the call. This man had no voice by the end of the game.
Man's already in his pajamas. He's got his slippers on. Yep. He's sipping on a nice cup of tea. And like, hey, Reese, we need you,
dog.
Time bear.
Touchdown, Miami.
Hey, talk about overtime pay. I'm sure that man got a fat check.
Yeah.
From that ESPN Disney money. I'm really hoping they did because that's such a feat, to be able to call a game like he does. He does good in his energetic calls, and you're yelling a lot of the time. So, I mean, he is obviously out of it on the call, but can you blame him? I mean, employee of the year right there. So, you love to see it.